Hello everybody and welcome back to the Take 5 Art Challenge for September. The prompts this month were chosen by the lovely Sylvia, and what I'm hoping to do from now on in is to tell you a little bit about each of the girls that chose the prompts, just so that you could get to know them a little bit better as I am. Because I am new to this group, I'd love to know each and every one of these girls. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about them so that you can go ahead and check out their channels and get to know them and get to know their type of art on their channels. So if you look at the prompts that Sylvia chose, you will soon realize that these prompts are so Sylvia. I love how my art journal turned out, and I think it's amazing how somebody else's influence and somebody else's love can really bring out their character in your work. So here we go. Here are the 5 prompts which I've got up on the screen right now. We've got a map, a picture, which I chose as a collage from one of the magazines, and an element from nature, a music score sheet, and the color green. So I went out into my garden and I picked out some lavender. Lavender is nice and lush this time of the year here in Australia. So I pressed some lavender about a couple of weeks ago, knowing the prompts in advance, and I knew that I was going to use the lavender as an element in this art spread. The picture I'm using is from a magazine cutting. I had a whole lot there which I showed you, and somehow the picture of the girl with the horse in the fields and the lavender kind of really spoke to me, so I love that combination and I reached for that. The use of the map is new for me. I have never ever used a map before, and I wasn't sure how I was going to incorporate it into my layout. It did turn out to be just a background element, but you'll see in a little bit, I do add a little bit of gesso, but a very light coat of gesso. So as a result, the colors of the map, the red, the blue, the green, they all come out in the background and they actually create such a lovely texture. And I want to thank Sylvia for suggesting this as a prompt, because I never would have used this before. So it's always good to try something new. So after I collage the map on the right hand side, I then tear up some strips and I add them to the left hand side of the page, just so that they are another element in the background that can be seen a little later on through all the other elements that I add. After the map goes down, I reach for my gesso. This is gesso by Liquitex, and what I decide to do is add the gesso with my finger. I have ruined so many brushes due to gesso, due to gel medium, so I've promised myself that from now on I'm only going to be applying gesso and glues or matte mediums with my finger or some other object other than my paintbrushes. I also have this card which I'm using to scrape it down. Scraping it down with a card is really good because it takes off any excess that you don't need. I'm also adding it around my little collage there. I get a little bit on the little horsey, but I do manage to scrape it off and it blends in with the rest of the white of the horse, so it looks really good. As you can see here, I'm really scraping it out, trying to make sure that the map really shows in the background, but also making it so that the gesso covers the entire page, so it primes the page for the paint that's about to come next. Next comes the fun part, and it's the addition of color. I chose to add color in the form of spray, and I chose 2 spray products. The first is a Glimmer Mist chalkboard spray from Tattered Angels. This is in the color Mantis. It's a beautiful color and it has a beautiful glimmer which just adds a great texture and a great look to your background. The other one is Dylusions ink spray in the color Polished Jade. I added them to the page upside down and then I allowed them to float down so that when you flip the page over, it looks like it's green grass growing upwards. I definitely also remembered to cover up the picture of the horse because I didn't want it to get sprayed all over, although I did get a little bit onto the picture, but I'll show you how I fixed that up a little later on. I'm not moving any of the splatters that occurred naturally from the spray. I want it to look quite organic and mixed however it mixes. Next, it's time to add the lavender. I have my heat gun here. It's been warming up since the very beginning, and I very simply just add some big ones and some small ones here, there, in a pattern which I imagine would look like in a lavender field. Now I just want to show you here, this is what I did earlier. So I pressed the lavender flowers in between two sheets of wax paper, and then I rolled them with a heavy object. So I had my roller from my kitchen, but in this case I'm just showing you that you can do it with even your bottle. And then I left them underneath a heavy book for about 2 weeks before I started this project. Now these two here, they're just freshly rolled, so they're not as dry and they're not as flat as the other bits, but I just wanted to show you that you can do it straight away if you wanted to use fresh flowers. Next, what I'm doing is I'm reaching for my matte medium with my palette knife, and I'm just kind of adding them to the sides of the flowers just so that it preserves the flower a little bit and keeps it in place and that they don't start falling away as this book gets older and fatter. I totally adore how this page is looking. I love the green, I love the flowers, I love the image of the horse, and this is what I meant earlier when I said somebody else's prompts really gives you a feel for that person's personality. So Sylvia lives in the mountains in the south of France, and she's an art therapist as well as an art teacher. She loves travel, she speaks 4 foreign languages, she loves culture, and she's a true nature lover. Her favorite artists are Dali and Van Gogh, and about 4 years ago, she decided to branch out into mixed media. And if you check out her YouTube channel and her Instagram account, you'll see so much of who Sylvia is in the work that she does. Her art journals are beautiful. She has a lot of nature pictures which she shares from the places that she goes and who she sees. Definitely check her out on Instagram and her YouTube channel, which I will leave below. And I'm sure that you will find a lot of inspiration in the work that she does. So going back to my art journal page here, what I decided to do, because I didn't have a music score sheet, I grabbed the stamp that I have had in my stash for like 6 years, and I chose to stamp music in the background with, at first I chose shaded lilac, but it was too light a color. So then I went with dusty concord and a little bit of wilted violet, and something inside me just made me want to touch the wilted violet to the lavender, and it was so right, so I added that extra color to the lavender. So a little bit of cheat, but it looks so vibrant. I love it. The next thing I did was I added just a little bit of black to the edges, and then I used Perfect Pearls, I think it is, to activate that inky black color. And then I let it flow around the edges of the paper, framing it really nicely. The next thing I'm doing is I'm grabbing my distress ink. This is Mode Lawn, and I'm just adding a touch of green to the stalks of the lavender as well as to the dried hot glue that's holding the lavender on the page. Next, I wanted to add just a little bit of extra darkness to the edges, and this is Gathered Twigs. So I love that combination of a little bit of black and a little bit of the glimmer and a little bit of the brown along the edges. It makes it look really vintage. It's now time for the sentiment. So I reach for these chipboard alphas, and I decided to go for the sentiment Stay Wild. I think the sentiment is so perfect for the page and so perfect for you, Sylvia. It kind of makes sense, like wild lavender in the fields, wild horses, staying wild and true to whoever you are and not being tamed in your art. I don't know, it just kind of was the right sentiment for how I was feeling when I made this page, so I'm gonna go with it. I decided to split up the two words, one on each page and also one on each sentence, so that when the book closed, they didn't stack on top of each other and add bulk to my journal. Last of all, there is that splatter of green. Do you see it there right next to her head? It really upset me, and I thought maybe perhaps I could cover it up with a sticker, but it felt really abnormal to add a sticker there. So what I did decide to do was draw in a lavender flower myself. I started off with a pencil just to give myself a little bit of confidence, and then I reached for my purple metallic gel pen and I drew a lavender flower. Yay! It is very cute. I'm very proud of myself. However, it does look really flat compared to the actual textured 3D flower itself, but I'm so glad that I did it. It kind of adds a little bit of me to the page, and yeah, it takes care of that green splatter that just flowed there incorrectly, I think. So here it is, up close and very personal. I love dried flowers. How amazing does this look? I love the thought of it. I like the texture of it. I love the smell of it. This book smells amazing now that I've got dried lavender pressed to the pages. I love the music stamp. I love the bit of map showing in between there. That horse is beautiful. That girl, that could be me sitting there in the wild with a beautiful horse among beautiful flowers. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys. I hope you do get a chance to play along with these prompts this month. If you do, go ahead and use the hashtag Take5Art. We'd love to see what you make, and Kyra will add you to our playlist for this month. Don't forget to check out what the other girls do. It'll be amazing. I'm sure it will be. So you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you in my next video.